So, we said in the last video, talking about Michael Hage, that there was a conversation that we needed to have about Montreal Canadiens prospect Alexander Zharovsky. Now, I'm gonna be real, there actually are a number of things that we can talk about when it comes to Zharovsky, and the more direct note actually has to do with the community events. Take a look at this. As posted on the RHAB subreddit, Alexander Zharovsky will participate at an exhibition shootout event called the MYN Showdown in Boisbriand this Saturday, July 11th. That's cool. Like, this guy comes over to Brassard to train and hang out with his buddy Ivan Demidov, and just a few weeks later he's participating in Boisbriand showdown contests? I mean, that's cool. Talk about already incorporating yourself in the Montreal Canadiens lore and giving the fans a show in the process. If this guy got traded and he was no longer a Canadiens guy, would he still have been invited to participate here? Who knows? One thing is for sure, though, we already knew that Alexander Zharovsky was friends growing up with Ivan Demidov. So, I don't really have an answer as to whether or not Zharovsky would have been hanging out and practicing with Demidov in Brassard had he had gotten traded this previous season, but I would wager that it's not, like, zero. It would probably have a decent amount of happening either way. You've got some other names that are going to be participating in the shootout: Bolduc, Max Talbot. Interesting guys over here. Isn't that what Ivan Demidov did last year? But anyways, today's commentary isn't about Alexander Zharovsky participating in local shootout competitions. Instead, I wanted to go over what his agent Dan Milstein had to say about Zharovsky almost getting traded, and the latest on how everything has unfolded. This article on DonLesCoulisses.com will be linked in the description, published by Felix Forget. It talks about how his agent doesn't deny Zharovsky almost getting traded at last year's trade deadline. At the last trade deadline, the Canadiens made no moves. Kent Hughes was unable to complete a deal, but the GM clarified that he had worked extensively on a deal that did fall through. And ultimately, everything pointed to the fact that the file in question was that of Matthew Knies, who was reportedly traded to the Canadiens. In return, according to reports, the Maple Leafs almost acquired Alexander Zharovsky, a close friend of Ivan Demidov, who could have been traded less than a year after being drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. And it's interesting to note that in an interview given to RB Sport, a Russian media outlet, Zharovsky's agent Dan Milstein was asked whether it was true the Canadiens almost traded Zharovsky away. Here is the tweet posted by Ugg that goes over some of these Dan Milstein comments. A great interview with Milstein came out yesterday. I translated the part about Demidov, Zharovsky, Karmanov, and Nikita Klepov. Seriously, it's a great one. Let's open each of these images in new tabs so we can zoom in and read a little bit closer. Milstein talks about Alexander Karmanov, the big San Jose Sharks prospect taken in the 7th round of the most recent draft. There then is a conversation on Demidov. We met him when he was just 12 or 13. For his parents, coming to Moscow from Dimitrov was a big deal. I asked his dad then, is there anything we can do to help? And he said, get us a banya. And 4 years later, I'm standing next to him in Vegas when Celine Dion reads his name and he gets drafted 5th overall. That's pretty great, isn't it? Lots of history and family familiarity from Dan Milstein's perspective. How difficult were the negotiations with Montreal? The dialogue went on for about 6 months, which is interesting, especially considering the deal that Montreal seemed to have gotten. Both sides wanted to get the deal done and not wait for the current agreement to expire. Vanya got a good contract, yada yada yada. Did Demidov handle the crazy pressure that comes with playing in that hockey city well? Now, this is where we talk about Zharovsky. Is Montreal, the question asks, really looking to trade Zharovsky's rights, and did they almost do that before the trade deadline? Dan Milstein said, Gretzky got traded. Teams always asked about Pavel Datsyuk and other players too. That's normal. It's business. Any team can ask, but that doesn't mean a player is getting moved. As of today, Sasha, so Alexander, his rights belong to Montreal. They value him very highly. And so does the rest of the league. Naturally, in any trade, a team looking to improve will ask about young players, but that doesn't mean they're giving them up. A lot of fans and journalists are hoping for a Russian connection in Montreal, Demidov and Zharovsky. Milstein says here, the head coach decides who plays and where, so it all depends on him and where these guys end up in the lineup. Could Zharovsky head overseas in a year? Milstein says right now he is playing for Salavat Yuleyev. He is training in Montreal with Ivan Demidov to take the next step next season and help his team win in the KHL. And after the season ends, we'll sit down with Sasha, his family, and discuss the next steps. So the article is pretty accurate, hey? His agent doesn't deny anything, but he doesn't confirm anything either. Dan Milstein is taking a very liberal and diplomatic approach by saying, yeah, no, Ivan Demidov, he's pretty good. Alexander Zharovsky, he's pretty good too. And his rights belong with the Habs. That's it. He's focused on winning a KHL championship. He wants to be a KHL athlete. He's training to be the best version of himself heading into this KHL season. And if you want to talk about them playing together, Demidov and Zharovsky, that's up to the coach. So, yeah. Dan Milstein knows how to handle the media, doesn't he? Let's go back over to the article over here. Milstein pointed out that Zharovsky's rights still belong to the Montreal Canadiens and that all 32 teams in the league hold Zharovsky in high regard. This naturally leads other teams to covet a prospect of his caliber. You are free to interpret that as you wish. Milstein also mentioned Ivan Demidov's contract negotiations. The agent explained that talks lasted approximately 6 months, but it's likely they accelerated significantly in the last month, and that everybody wanted to finalize everything this summer. Milstein's comments were very interesting, especially considering he represents some big names within the Canadiens organization. Hearing him talk about Demidov and Zharovsky is obviously of interest to Habs fans. Oh, and on Zharovsky's arrival in America, Milstein noted that he'll sit down with the youngster at the end of the upcoming season to determine the next steps, so we can forget about the scenario of a hasty arrival, even though that scenario was already quite unlikely. So, with that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Dan Milstein, not really taking the bait here, not pouring any fire, not pouring any gasoline on everything that was going down. He was just playing it cool. This is a Montreal Canadiens guy, and he's committed to developing himself for next season. That's about it, isn't it? With that said, though, you can let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Seeing everything going on with Zharovsky, the point production with Salavat Yuleyev Ufa, the projection into next season in the KHL, and thinking about what he was able to do throughout the past 12 months or so, would you be interested in seeing Zharovsky flipped for a name like Matthew Nyes or something like that? Does that make sense, in your opinion? You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think he should belong on a line with Ivan Demidov long-term, whether that is Martin St. Louis' decision or not? Thoughts in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.